still speaking to his people through Isaiah and us. He's letting them and us know that he's fully aware of the situation, that he's going to deliver his city in the immediate future. Further, he has a plan for the entire world. And again, we're going to hear this, so we've heard it in other chapters, but evil and wickedness will be harshly judged. But God's righteous people are going to inherit a millennial kingdom of staggering joy and beauty and glory, and that's where we'll wrap up on today, which is always great when it plays out that way. It's a genuine utopia. Now, whenever men try to create a utopia, it lasts a few weeks, a few months, a year, a couple of years, and then it tends to break up because honestly, we're sinful people, we're prideful people, we want what we want, and human utopias have been a fleeting dream, like trying to nail Jello to the wall, I guess, right? But with God, it can happen. The millennial kingdom will truly be a utopia of righteousness and sinlessness and holiness and joy and thanksgiving and singing and celebration for real and forever. And so that's where we're working to this morning. I think it has all great application for us today. Life, I think, can surely seem to be encircling us for the attack sometimes. It can be from relational, financial, whatever, economy, my business, whatever. And sometimes we have those seasons where it's like getting hard to breathe, but you know what? The Lord's there and he's aware of what you need. And I think we're going to be encouraged today that we can take hope from our passages that God is our defender. God's our defender. Our enemies have much to fear, and God plans for all things to work for our good if we just stay faithful. It's always too soon to give up when you have Christ. It's always too soon to give up when you have Christ. I think our chapters will break down this way just for general topical coverage. Chapter 33, Isaiah's going, I know it looks grim over the walls there, but Jerusalem is going to be delivered by God. We're going to be delivered. Chapter 34 is just, again, a thing where the sinful world is going to be judged. Now, the Assyrians are going to be judged in the very short term, but this is really looking at the tribulation again, that basically is God saying, my righteousness will be vindicated one day. I will wait so long, but when the time is over, judgment will come on iniquity, upon the unrepentant, right? And then chapter 35, the glorious kingdom of Jesus is going to be established. And, so let's dive right in to Isaiah chapter 33. Verse 1 opens with God addressing the enemy of God's people, the Assyrians in this day, and specifically their king. His name's Sennacherib. And it says this, or the Bible may say, woe. And so speaking to that king, goes, woe, you destroyer, who yourself have not been destroyed, you traitor, whom none has betrayed. When you have ceased to destroy, you will be destroyed. And when you have finished betraying, they will betray you. And so what he's saying, what God is telling King Sennacherib is that it's before the invasion, they're pretty cocky. They rolled right through Israel like hot knife through butter. And they're now doing the same thing in Judah. And so they are like really overconfident, okay? But they haven't gotten to the Lord's city yet. They haven't gotten to the city that bears his name, okay? And God's reminding him, you haven't been destroyed, but you're now going to be. You've been the betrayer, and I remind you that King Sennacherib took a small fortune from King Hezekiah. And initially he thought he could buy protection. And he stripped the gold out of the temple and out of the treasury. And they took it to the Assyrian king, and he gladly took it all and turned around and attacked Judah anyway. And so he's a betrayer, but he's going to be betrayed. In fact, we'll come to see that after the Lord defeats his army at Jerusalem, he goes home and is actually murdered by his own sons in his pagan temple. So God's word fulfilled. But here's the deal, God's saying, you're going to, who are you? Well, you're a guy that does this. You betray, you destroy. What you sow is what you're going to reap from me. And you know what? Jesus said something very much like that in Matthew 7, 1 and 2. And we're just reminded there he started out saying, judge not, that you not be judged. For in what judgment you judge, the way you judge others, understand you too are going to be judged. Okay? But then the main point is this next phrase. And with the same measure you use, it will be measured back to you. And so God's just saying, my kingdom's always, my rules, my warnings have always been the same. You're going to reap what you've sown, and if it's wickedness and betrayal and dishonesty and evil, in the end, I'm going to return that very thing to you. And God has every right to deal with us as we've dealt with others. We've spoken often of the biblical principle of reaping and sowing in life. If you sow destruction and betrayal, you can be assured that's what awaits you. And although it seems like in the time, it never seems like God gets even with people fast enough. Let's just say on a world stage. But don't you notice that as time goes on, it rarely ends well for the really wicked and the evil. They seem to have their season in the light where they've short-circuited God's judgment in their opinion, maybe in ours, but you know what? In the end, God vindicates their unrighteousness. I've seen it again and again. But here's the deal. It's the same for sowing peace. It's the same for sowing understanding. It's the same for sowing forgiveness and mercy and compassion. It will be returned to you by God. I mean, you're going to get a lot back from people. That rocks too. But the Lord himself wants to return to you in the same measure. So now we come in verse 2. We come to a prayer of God's small remnant people in imminent danger, praying to reap through the help of God what they have sown in their lives of faith. Okay? And we think they're the vast majority in Jerusalem, sadly, but nonetheless, they are faithful. And here's their prayer in verse 2. Oh Lord, be gracious to us. We wait for you. Be our arm every morning, our salvation in the time of trouble. At the tumultuous noise, peoples flee. When you lift yourself up, nations are scattered, and your spoil is gathered. As the caterpillar gathers, and as locusts leap, it is left upon. And so it's sort of a beautiful prayer. Hey, Lord, our faithful remnant, we're trusting in you. I don't know if we've got enough arrows. I don't know if we've got enough boiling oil up in the wall. I don't know if we've got enough spears. I don't know. But we've got you. And we're going to stand. Will you be our strong arm and protect us, And they talk about that, he's going to strike down these nations and scatter them. And he compares the gathering of the spoil that these people leave behind as they go running out of Judah as the caterpillar gathers. And I was thinking, I've never seen caterpillars exactly going around with a bunch of junk on their back that they've gathered up, But what I've seen them do in my yard, sadly, usually on my tomato plants, is that they lay there on a leaf. And have you ever seen how they gather the leaf around? They'll put some silk out there, and they pull it closed around them, and then they metamorphose in there, and they eat a big circle out of your tomato plant leaf in the process of doing that. But I think it's that idea that God gathers up. They do that effortlessly. And I think the pictures here is that God is going to effortlessly harvest from the booty, if you will, of these enemies leaving his holy land. And it's the same with the locust. I mean, I've shown pictures before of locust swarms going across northern Africa or something. It's like a black cloud of 1 billion. Nothing stops it. I mean, you could have an AK-47. It's not going to do anything, Maybe a flamethrower wouldn't be too bad for a little area, but I'm going to try that out. But the bottom line is, as effortlessly as even the locusts move across the land, is how God is going to move across his enemies, They don't have a chance. And you know what? God always takes notice of a praying minority. How often have a faithful few through prayer preserved many? Think of what our nation deserves in many ways, yet is largely still receiving mercy in many ways. And I just believe we still have a praying remnant in our nation. God listens to that. I always think of Abraham, the angel of the Lord came to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah, but if you could find just 50 alive. And it was sort of like Abraham was a remnant praying for Sodom and Gomorrah. I mean, just him basically crying out to the Lord. How about if I could find 40? What about 30, 20, 10? God was faithful. He listened to Abraham. Yeah, if you could do it, fine. We couldn't find but 8. And you know what? God was faithful to answer his prayer. But you know what? Sodom was lost. So, but God takes notice of a praying minority. I pray we don't give up praying for our nation and our communities and our friends and our family. There's great expectancy in the simple prayer. God will act powerfully. They said, oh Lord, be gracious. We wait for you. That's expecting God to do something, isn't it? We wait. We wait for you. That's a great way to live. Well, this prayer now goes on from praying for immediate needs to praising God for who he is in verse 5. Listen, they're saying, the Lord is exalted, for he dwells on high. He will fill Zion with justice and righteousness. And he will be the stability of our times, abundance of salvation, wisdom, and knowledge. The fear of the Lord is Zion's treasure. That's a good underliner right there. The fear of the Lord is Zion's treasure. In faith, our honor, respect, and reverence towards the Lord is actually one of our greatest treasures, one of our greatest strengths. And the fear of the Lord is just this honest appraisal of he's all-powerful, and I'm a caterpillar, okay? He creates universes, and, I have a hard time, making a business work or something, But it's this beautiful fear of the Lord. It's an intense, awesome recognition of who God is and how all-powerful he is, right? And so the proper fear of the Lord brings God alongside of you in your trials. What a treasure. When things are the bleakest is when you can expect God to act, right? Verse 7, behold, their heroes, which in this case is the valiant ones or the soldiers or the warriors of Judah, they cry in the streets. The envoys of peace weep bitterly. Everything Judah's tried to do militarily and diplomatically has failed. This little thing here, the Lord's saying, we've tried to take care of this and it hasn't worked. Okay? Verse 8, the highways lie waste, the traveler ceases, covenants are broken, cities are despised, there's no regard for man. The land mourns and languishes, Lebanon is confounded and withers away, Sharon is like a desert, it was like a beautiful oasis. And Bashan and Carmel shake off their leaves. It's like a tree that's been shed of all its leaves in a storm. But it's when things look the worst that our God appears in his might and power. Verse 10, now I will arise. I will arise, says the Lord. Now I will lift myself up. Now I will be exalted. And so I just want to say, when God says, I arise, that's not good news for the enemies of God. It's not a good day for you if you're opposing what he's doing. And that's who he now addresses in verse 11. He says, you conceive chaff, you birth stubble. In other words, your breath is a fire that will consume you. That's a cool thought there that, apart from God, pretty much the things we say just birth useless. I mean, not fruit. I love the analogy here of just stubble, right? And chaff. Just trash. And in fact, and then he says, so you're making all of this in your life, and then your voice is like a flame to light it all and burn it all away, And it says in verse 12, the peoples will be as if burned alive, while thorns cut down that are burned in the fire. So, God's rising is good news for the faithful. We're going to be delivered from our enemies. The rest of the chapter now deals with the idea of the deliverance of the righteous. In verse 13, here, you who are far off, and I think we can understand this is speaking spiritually here to the backslidden masses of Judah. They in the past have worshipped God, but they said, we don't need God, we're just going to go through the motions, make a big deal, we throw some money in the pot of the temple, but I'm not going to think about the Lord otherwise. And he says, so you who are far off, what I have done, and you who are near, acknowledge my might. And so that will be the faithful remnant, right? Verse 14, the sinners in Zion are afraid. Trembling accede the godless. Who among us can dwell with the consuming fire? That's the consuming fire of God's judgment, right? Who among us can dwell with everlasting burnings? So Isaiah is saying that when the Jews see what God's going to do to the Assyrian army soon, they're going to realize, what if he now turns around and comes back into Jerusalem and looks for the unfaithful Jews there? Are we going to experience the same consuming fire the Assyrians are going to consume? I'm reminded of Hebrews chapter 10 and verse 26 and 27. It says, for if we go on sinning deliberately, I think that means habitually, after receiving the knowledge of the truth, there no longer remains a sacrifice for sins, but a fearful expectation of judgment and a fury of fire that will consume the adversaries. So now the fire of God's eternal judgment to us as children of God is not something we need to fear, though, right? I don't have to fear the fire of God's judgment any longer. I think the only fire God puts us through as we remain faithful to him is through the refining fire where he's purging out of our lives the dross in order that we might become purer and purer. So yeah, He does chasten us when we are going astray. He does weed the things out of our lives that aren't a blessing to us growing in Christ's likeness. But His purpose is to make us better and stronger, right? 1 Peter 4:12 reminds us, beloved, don't be surprised at the fiery trial when it comes upon you to test you as though something strange were happening to you. The prosperity gospel guys want you to think it's something strange when you're going through something difficult. There's something wrong with you. There's something flawed in your faith. You don't have enough faith. Let's pass that offering plate around one more time, okay? But that's the problem. That's not what the problem is. The Lord will test us. The Lord does give us challenging seasons. But it's to make us stronger and perfect us. We just need to remember that. When it comes to Jesus Christ, we have all of our hang-ups when we come to Him, right? We have all kinds of impurities. And so God puts us through the fire that He can burn many of those up. We go through the testing. We go through trials, but God has a purpose. And so I'm in the fire of God. But because I'm a child of God, the fire of God is only refining me and taking away my impurities. Now, here's the bottom line. Everybody's in the fire of God at some time or another, sinner and Christian alike. But if you're a sinner, the eternal fire of God is awaiting you. We don't have an eternal fire awaiting us. We're a child of God. We're assured that we will avoid the lake of fire that awaits the ungodly. So, verse 14, there's this question: who can dwell in this devouring fire? Well, verse 15, God answers the rhetorical question Himself, right? He describes the kind of person that He will accept and bless. And so what we have here in verse 15 and 16 is the practical transforming power of God's grace in a man or a woman's life. Beautiful couple of verses here. And so who can survive the fire of God's judgment? Well, here's who. He who walks righteously and speaks uprightly, who despises the gain of oppressions, who shakes his hands lest they hold him wry, okay? Who stops his ears from the hearing of bloodshed and shuts his eyes from looking on evil. He will dwell on the heights. His place of defense will be the fortresses of rocks. His bread will be given him. His water will be sure. But by ourselves, we can't achieve any of those things, right? They're qualities of character that only God can perfect. They come only as we trust Jesus and grow in grace. And many religious people in Jerusalem had hearts far from God because their religion was just an external exercise with no connection to the heart. Isaiah here is voicing hope that the miracle of deliverance will bring these people to a place of devotion again. So, in verses 17 to 24, the prophet lifts his vision to the end times and sees Jerusalem ruled by the King, the Messiah. Look at verse 17. He's telling the people there in Jerusalem, your eyes will behold the King in His beauty. I believe that's King Jesus. They will see a land that stretches afar. Your heart will muse on the terror. Sort of remember the old days when we worried so much about the Assyrians? And he says, where is he who counted, the size of your army? Where is he who weighed the tribute? Where is he who counted the towers? In other words, what happened to all your enemies? In those days, we're going to be thinking about what happened. They're gone, right? Verse 19, you will see no more the insolent people, the people of an obscure speech that you can't comprehend, stammering in a tongue that you cannot understand. Behold, Zion, the city of our appointed feasts. Your eyes will see Jerusalem, an untroubled habitation, an immovable tent whose stakes will never be plucked up, nor will any of its cords be broken. But there the Lord in majesty will be for us a place of broad rivers and streams. Doesn't that just sound beautiful when you hear about rivers and streams? Where no galley with oars can go, no enemy navy is going to sail into your harbor and put you to siege ever again, right? No majestic ship can pass. This has to be a future prophecy of the millennial kingdom. He's looking at the day is coming where you no longer will be worrying. Okay, all the things you worry about today, in those days, well, remember how we used to worry about it? It's not going to happen anymore. But it has to be a future prophecy because we do know that Jerusalem is going to be destroyed 2 more times after Isaiah writes these words. That King Nebuchadnezzar from Babylon will come in and flatten basically Jerusalem and take all the Jews to Babylon for 70 years. And then we know the Romans do the same thing again in 70 AD. But when Christ reigns, Jerusalem will be like a tent that will never be moved again. It will be pitched by a broad river. Okay? Have you ever thought about the fact that Jerusalem is one of the few cities of antiquity that wasn't built on a river or near one? The Jordan's not very close, and by the way, it's like you can throw a rock across it pretty much at Jericho. I think it's not that big a river, right there anyway. But it's one of the few cities of antiquity that wasn't built by a river. But it's interesting that that's going to change during the millennial kingdom. In Ezekiel chapter 47, there's a description of the temple in this future time, and there's going to be basically two rivers coming out of the foundation of the temple, one going south and one going east. Okay, and so it's going to be a place. And we think that when Christ returns, other prophets say he's going to step upon the Mount of Olives. It's going to split north and south. And we think out of this great fissure will come these waters that will form a river. And of course, a river symbolizes peace, doesn't it? And what the Lord gives, I think of Isaiah 48:18. Oh, that you had paid attention to my commandments, then your peace would have been like a river. Think of that song. Peace like a river. It's true. It's true. A beautiful, slow river. It's so peaceful. Isaiah 66. For thus says the Lord, behold, I will extend peace to her like a river, and the glory of the nations like an overflowing stream. And Psalm 46:4. There's a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy habitation of the Most High. So anyone here this morning need some peace? Do you use the peace of a river right now in your life? Just place your hope in Christ and the fact that you are going to live to walk with Christ through this place that we just talked about. We're all going to be there. We're all going to be in the millennial kingdom. Regardless of whether we get raptured or our body, our old tent wears out and we simply die before Christ returns, but we're going to walk with Christ along these streams. Verse 22 says, for the Lord is our judge, the Lord is our lawgiver, the Lord is our king. He will save us. And of course, Jesus in his first coming didn't really fulfill specifically these roles in his earthly ministry. He was by necessity the suffering servant. But we know how he's described in prophecy and then in the book of Revelation. When he comes again, these are the varied roles of Christ to rule and reign the millennial kingdom. I think it's interesting. We see three roles there: the judge, the lawgiver, and the king. I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but I was wondering, it really struck me, if the framers of our Constitution were influenced by this verse. Because really, when you look at those three titles right there, you have judge, that's the judiciary, those who interpret the law. We have the legislative branch, okay, the lawgivers, they make law. And then we have the king, and that would be the executive branch who enforces law. And so to me, I guess it's politics season, but my mind jumped right to that. How interesting. But here's the deal, you know, we're not saved by laws in Christ, we're saved by grace through faith in Christ. And so he will remind us of what's lawful. I mean, but I think in the millennial kingdom, you know, the law is going to be like so completely written on our hearts. But really, we're just going to be dealing with his grace. He's just going to be dealing with us in love and grace, you know. But the law will never be circumvented. It will still be, you know, lived by. I think that the vast majority of our founding fathers were intensely godly men. And I think verse 22 may have responded to that. I'll sort of finish up here with a sort of a nautical picture of the dependence of Judah on God. Verse 23, your cords hang loose. Think of the ropes that hold the sail, or all the rigging on a sailing boat. It says they cannot hold the mast firm in its place or keep the sail spread out. Then prey and spoil and abundance will be divided. Even the lame will take the prey. So it's saying in the beginning of verse 23, listen, you're sort of like of your own power, you're like a demasted sailing ship just drifting loosely. But nonetheless, God is watching over you. And there's still going to be spoil and abundance and divided, but it's not because of anything you're doing, it's because of the Lord. Verse 24, and no inhabitant will say, I'm sick. The people who dwell there will be forgiven their iniquity. So we in ourselves, dependent on our own self-righteousness, are pretty helpless. We're like a dismasted ship at the mercy of the winds and the waves. But God rescues us. He forgives our sin and blesses us and brings us to safe harbor, doesn't he? I think God's victory over Assyria is nothing but a dress rehearsal for what's coming in the Great Tribulation, those 7 years. It's interesting that when the Lord was here on earth, the unbelieving Jews said that he, Jesus, had no form or majesty. They said that there was no beauty that we should desire him. Okay, it's actually from Isaiah 53. It's coming up, but that's what the Jews said to Jesus when he was amongst them. But when they see him and believe at the end of the tribulation, then they're going to perceive his great beauty, and they will mourn for him who they pierced. They will recognize that he was all along our Messiah. That's really the purpose of those 7 years, is to bring God's people back to their Messiah. Okay, the next 2 chapters, short ones, couldn't be more different in content. It's God once again telling us through Isaiah that there are but 2 possible outcomes for mankind: judgment or salvation. Judgment or salvation. Okay, chapter 34 describes God's final judgment on an unbelieving world, while chapter 35 describes the final vindication of his people and their everlasting happiness. Can we get there? Okay, chapter 34. God always first offers mercy to the sinful, to the unrighteous. That's always his first play. Hey, listen up. He always offers the truth to mankind to hear and respond to. Look at verse 1. It says, "Draw near, O nations, to hear, and give attention, O peoples. Let the earth hear, and all that fills it, the world, and all that comes from it." God's saying, listen up. A great battle's coming. My enemies against me. What side are you going to be on? You don't want to be my enemy. Trust me, right? Here's the deal. God doesn't just fly off the handle. He just doesn't lose it and start striking out at unrighteousness and sin. He always warns and pleads and offers and presents grace, right? He's very measured. He's patient, long-suffering, gives warning after warning. We have to remember what Paul wrote of God in Romans 12:19. He said, "Beloved, never avenge yourselves." That's a good word for us. We don't do revenge well. We always go over and beyond what's just. But leave it to the wrath of God, for it's written, "Vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord." I've heard it said, and I must agree, it's an interesting way to think of it. God measures time and morality. I think I've mentioned it once or twice in Isaiah. God measures time and morality. He doesn't go, okay, I'm going to wait 700 years, and in exactly 700 years I'm going to do this. But here's the bottom line. What he's looking at is iniquity. He's also looking at righteousness. But I think, when is Jesus going to return? He's measuring time right now morally. I think it doesn't give me any clue. What's the line in the sand of immorality that God finally says, okay, time's up. Jesus is coming to tribulation. Take my church home, start the tribulation, and then he'll return and judge. No, but God measures time morally. And when his line is finally crossed, he acts in terrifying divine judgment. And that's what this chapter is about. Verse 2, "For the Lord is enraged against all the nations and furious against their hosts," their armies, their hordes. I just want you to know, in verse 2, he's enraged against the nations. That didn't just happen. He just doesn't have a bad temper. He's not one of those guys you tiptoe around on eggshells so you set him up. I mean, when this happens, he has done everything possible to prevent this now being what's called for. And that's who our God is, and don't forget that. But he goes on, he's devoted them to destruction, has given them over for slaughter, their slain shall be cast out, the stench of their corpses shall rise, the mountains shall flow with their blood. None of them needed to, no one needed to experience that. Verse 4, "All the host of heaven shall rot away." So we have a reference here to wickedness, even in the spiritual realm, but we know we're in a world of spiritual warfare. And so even those who once had heavenly passes, if you will, have been cast out, but they are going to be struck down, right? And the skies are going to roll up like a scroll. That's right out of Revelation. Or I should say Revelation is right out of Isaiah, right? "All their hosts shall fall as leaves from the vine, like leaves falling from the fig tree." Revelations chapter 6, 8, 9, 16, and 18 all describe this terrible time. It's tough when I teach through Revelation to get through those chapters and to think that one of these people needed to be judged. And God literally is sending angels with the gospel at all times to the people to shake their fists in their hatred of God. And so that's what we're talking about here. So God intends to clean house in the end times, not only here, but also in the divine realm amongst the angelic host. Verse 5 through 17. We now have Edom, which was a country that really hated Israel always, but they're really a type of the world, but they use Edom as just the example of really all nations. But we want you to remember the Edomites were descendants of Esau, Jacob's older brother. And Edom would be today what is parts of southern Jordan and northwestern Saudi Arabia, so sort of south into the east of the Dead Sea, that region there, all the way down to the Gulf of Aqaba, if you're a geography whiz. But Edom became a perpetual enemy of Israel, and just an appropriate example of what the Lord will do to any or all nations that fight against his people. I read this: Edom is a sister nation to Israel, but it hated Israel more than any other nation. Throughout all history, we see a burning hatred of Edom against Israel. And it's for this reason that Edom is frequently presented as a representative of all the nations that hate the Jews. And just think today of the abject hatred of Israel by nations. Many of the populations of Iran and Iraq and Syria, ISIS and Hamas and Hezbollah. God's speaking. He's warning Israel's enemies today, these peoples, through these very ancient words we're reading here. They're on the wrong side. What follows is harsh-sounding apocalyptic writing. We already had a little bit of this Edom, this type of the world. In verse 5 through 8, he moves from the battlefield to the temple. In verse 5 it says, "My sword has drunk its fill in the heavens. Behold, it descends for judgment upon Edom. Upon the people I have devoted to destruction. The Lord has a sword. It's sated with blood. It's gorged with fat, with blood of lambs and goats, the fat of the kidneys of rams." This is verbiage of the animal sacrifices that were routinely done at the temple. "For the Lord has a sacrifice in Bozrah," that was the major city of Edom, "a great slaughter in the land of Edom, wild oxen." Now, if you look at King James, it says unicorns right there. I don't know what they were thinking about that, when they came up with unicorns. But anyway, wild oxen is what the ESV says, "shall fall with them, and young steers with the mighty bulls. Their land shall drink its fill of blood, and their soil shall be gorged with fat." So God puts the destruction of Edom in particular, and the world in general, in terms of animal sacrifices, the scene of massive sacrifice. I think of the Passover, and we talked that when the Passover happened in Jerusalem, even in Jesus' days, hundreds and hundreds and thousands of Jews would come on a pilgrimage to Jerusalem to sacrifice animals. And the logistics of these animal sacrifices suggest the temple grounds were, yikes. As far as blood and things like that, but it was God's way of reminding people sin has a cost. It's a costly thing. And he'll prove that by making the ultimate sacrifice to finally appease and atone for the sin of mankind through the death of his very own Son, our Lord and Savior. There's something we need to remember. When God is forced to judge in this way, God is saying that my judgment will be holy. He doesn't do things flippantly. He doesn't do things with wrong motive. Think about it. Judgment is the result of God's holiness coming into contact with man's unrighteousness after ample opportunity to repent. Judgment is the result of God's holiness coming into contact with man's unrighteousness. It's when his holiness confronts our unrepentant iniquity. Okay? So that's what we're seeing here. But a day is coming when God's going to make a sacrifice of a wicked, sin-worshipping world of people and not animals. It's hard to imagine in the tribulation that that's what's going to happen. Verse 8, "The Lord has a day of vengeance, a year of recompense for the cause of Zion." That's the 7-year tribulation. And listen, so God has eternal plans for Israel. There's a day coming when the anti-Semitism of the world through the centuries against the Jews is going to be made right by God. He's going to vindicate his people, finally. Right? If I had a bet on the long-term survival of Israel or the world at large, I would put every penny I own on Israel to survive long-term. I just believe it's going to be amazing when we see the nations, maybe in the very near future, attempt some sort of a military sneak attack on Israel. Be prepared to be shocked and amazed, stunned and awed, at God's protection of his people. Verse 9, the streams of Edom shall be turned into pitch, their soil into sulfur, her land shall become burning pitch. I see in my mind the nightmarish oil field fires of Kuwait back in the 90s. Remember those pictures? At noon it was like dark as midnight. The ground was black. It was horrible. Sort of a picture. And I was thinking, can that happen today? Yeah. If some sort of a bomb were to go off in oil fields today, the only thing to stop that is we sent the good old boys from Texas, the oil well fire guys, that figured out how to put these out, and they went through, or those fires would still be burning today. They said there was enough oil for them to burn for 50 or 100 years. Imagine that happening. It could happen. God doesn't make up stuff. It couldn't possibly happen. That's what we see again and again. Verse 10, night and day it shall be quenched. Its smoke shall go up forever, from generation to generation. It shall lie waste, and none shall pass through it forever and ever. It's reminiscent of God's judgment on Sodom and Gomorrah. He's saying to Edom here as an example. And Isaiah finishes up here, sort of paints a picture of the virtual absence of mankind in Edom when he judges the people. Verse 11, but the hawk and the porcupine, interesting pair there, the hawk and the porcupine shall possess it, the owl, the raven shall dwell in it. He shall stretch the line of confusion over it, the plumb line of emptiness. Its nobles, well, there's no one there to call it a kingdom. All its princes shall be nothing. Thorns shall grow over its strongholds, nettles and thistles in its fortresses. It shall be the haunt of jackals. And again, I love the King James. It says dragons there. It shall be the haunt of dragons and an abode for ostriches. Again, another very odd pairing. I think it says owls. Verse 14. The wild animals shall meet with hyenas, and the wild goat shall cry to his fellow. I can't help it. I got to keep sharing this with you. And the King James says satyr. Satyr. I think that's the half man, half bull thing. What the satyr was. Remember that mythical beast? Interesting word. But unicorns, dragons, and satyrs. But anyway, the more modern translations put it into terms of more common animals. But anyway, the wild goat shall cry to his fellow. Indeed, there the night bird settles and finds for herself a resting place. There the owl nests and lays and hatches and gathers her young in her shadow. Indeed, there the hawks are gathered, each one with her mate. Okay? So seek and read from the book of the Lord. I agree. Not one of these shall be missing, none shall be without her mate. For the mouth of the Lord has commanded, and his spirit has gathered them, these animals. It reminds me of the Lord gathering the animals into the ark. Okay? He's going to gather them into Edom. When it's been judged, he has cast the lot for them. His hand has portioned it after them with the line. We shall possess it forever, from generation to generation. They shall dwell in it. And so what we have here is just a picture, just painting a picture that this place will be desolate. It's like one of these movies, only one guy left in the whole world. He walks through Manhattan. How many movies have been like that, right? Just all these red buildings teetering over, and they're running around until they find the zombies, which are in every movie now, right? But what is the zombies now? It's like westerns used to be when I was a kid. But anyway, the point is, it's just a picture of desolation, humankind judged, but not the animals. Verse 35, we move through here pretty fast. The Lord's day of blessing, the Lord is kingdom established. This is the desired millennial kingdom for which Jerusalem to this day, the Jews have longed for since God first promised it to Abraham. Okay, a utopia in which peace and fertility of the land prevail. But it cannot come until sin is judged, as we're going to read. Verse 1, the wilderness and the dry land shall be glad. The desert shall rejoice and blossom like the crocus or the rose, perhaps in your translation. Verse 2, it shall blossom abundantly and rejoice with joy and singing. The glory of Lebanon shall be given to it, the majesty of Carmel and Sharon. They shall see the glory of the Lord, the majesty of our God. This is just a celebration of verbiage here. This doesn't happen in Isaiah's day, but in the longer term. Think of modern day regathered Israel. I think that's the beginning of this prophecy, what they've done to make Israel a nation that exports more produce than any other country in that part of the world. It used to be just nothing but desert. God's fulfilled that just in these days. They produce flowers, everything. Okay. And God's going to restore the ecology of the world after the end. I mean, if you've ever gone through the book of Revelation, you realize by the time Jesus steps on the earth, this place is just one big smoldering mass of burned out, ruined everything. Oceans of blood. It's a mess. You think that's going to be the land that Jesus comes for his millennial reign to rule over? No way. No way. But here's what we have up until this change happens. I think of Romans 8, 21 and 22. The creation itself will be set free from its bondage to corruption and obtain the freedom of the glory of the children of God. For we know that the whole creation has been groaning together in the pains of childbirth until now. Creation's waiting for Christ to return. And in those days, those of weak hands will be strengthened and those of feeble knees firmed up. Okay? So God's concerned for his brethren. Verse 4, say to those who have an anxious heart, be strong, fear not. Behold, your God will come with vengeance, and with the recompense of God, he will come and save you. A good word, as good a word for us today as it was in the day Isaiah wrote this. God's going to have the final say in all history, not man. You know what? And he wants his covenant people to know that they are squarely in the center of his plans. Verse 5, then the eyes of the blind shall be opened, the ears of the deaf unstopped, and shall the lame man leap like a deer. I'm finally going to be able to dunk. Looking forward to this. They call out, don't get in my way, I might give you a facial. You know, don't they say on the NBA? I don't know, something like that. The tongue of the mute will sing for joy. Then the eyes of the blind shall be opened. Man, when God's salvation comes, miraculous power comes with it. I mean, can't you think of when you got saved? I mean, you understand when you see this phrase, my eyes were, I was blind, but now I see. I remember when I understood that. And I remembered both sides of it. I remember when I was deaf, and now I hear. I know what that means, right? Amen. When Christ came and saved us, he comes with miraculous power that changes our life. Okay? I don't remember that when I changed from a Democrat to a Republican. You know, sort of, okay. But when I changed from unsaved to a Christ follower, wow, supernatural changes in me through the power of God. Verse 6. For the waters break forth in the wilderness and streams in the desert. It reminds me of a fabulous devotional you can go through. It's called Streams in the Desert. It's a classic, especially when you're going through a tough season. And I think this is the verse they get the title of that from. But anything's possible with God, even streams appearing in the desert, right? 7, the burning sand shall become a pool, the thirsty ground springs of water, and the haunt of jackals where they lay down, the grass shall become reeds and rushes. I think of Psalm 23, my shepherd is going to lay me down in green pastures and lead me beside still waters when I go to be with him, right? Anyway. Jesus said he'd bring this kind of beautiful provision spiritually in the lives of his people, right? He who believes in me, as the scripture has said, out of his heart will flow rivers of living water, as a promise from Christ. And a highway shall be there, and it shall be called the way of holiness. Unclean shall not pass over it. It shall belong to those who walk on the way. Even if they're fools, they shall not go astray. I love that. You don't have to be a genius to walk on the way of holiness. You know, even fools that have enough sense, though, to have faith in Christ can walk that highway. Okay, from the simplest to the greatest. Verse 9, no lion shall be there, nor shall any ravenous beast come upon it. They shall not be found there, but the redeemed shall walk there. And the ransomed of the Lord shall return and come to Zion with singing. I love this ending. With singing, everlasting joy shall be on their heads. They shall obtain gladness and joy and sorrow and sighing shall flee away. Wow. Wow. God, you can come back up. I work for it. Somewhere along the line, we've gotten the mistaken idea of holiness as joylessness. And I don't know where that came from, because these are the most holy people that will ever be, and there is nothing but joy and gladness and celebration. And that's God's desire for us, right? Joy will replace heaviness, and gladness will replace sadness. You know? I can't wait to walk the highway of holiness with all of you one day, as we're walking to Jerusalem to see the Lord. How awesome will that be? And I got this crazy idea. I'd never even thought of this quite like that before, but you know, I mentioned that at the end of Revelation, the earth is destroyed when Christ returns, okay? He's come to Jerusalem. He throws Satan into the lake of fire. The false prophet and the Antichrist are thrown into the lake of fire. It's all. And then I just imagine that we all begin, those of us that have survived, we're walking towards Jerusalem, we're walking along this burned out world, just as we're going, is just turning green beside us. And flowers are coming up, trees are rising, leaves are appearing on these burned out stumps, and the water is going from muddy brown to clear and beautiful. And we're walking. Are you going to be singing? You're walking along and watching that? Are you going to be singing? You're going to be rejoicing as you see Jerusalem on the hill and you're coming, you see the light of Christ's presence there. I mean, what a beautiful picture to end with this morning. Let me just give you a couple of takeaways. From chapter 33, I just think God will deliver you from your trials. Our righteous fear of the Lord is our treasure, it's our strength, it's our secret weapon. Fear the Lord and He will protect you. Chapter 34, God's day of recompense comes against the wicked. It always will come. At the perfect time, God vindicates His faithful through the persecution of the wicked that have persecuted the faithful. Right? Finally, chapter 35, we will be rejoicing together in the millennial kingdom of Jesus Christ. Make no mistake, there is joy unspeakable in the Lord. That's my hope. All right, good word. Next week, actual siege of Jerusalem. Boy, does God do a work. Let's pray.